Well, good morning. And I'm going to take a minute, give a minute or so for people to jump in for our live stream this morning. Um, as you might notice, I am sitting in my car. I had a couple appointments this morning, and in the process of making running the errands, I found other things that came up, great opportunities. And sometimes God does that. He brings great opportunities or great interruptions into your day and other things that you weren't even planning on, but were truly encouraging. And that's what happened this morning. So I had a great time to spend some time with a friend that wasn't expecting, and so we enjoyed that time. So I normally I would get to the office first thing, and I start by studying and prepping for the devotionals. One of the first things I do every morning, and then we go ahead and go live at 11. And so I am not even been to the office yet with the errands I've been running this morning. And so, sometimes we talk about divine appointments, and that's definitely what it was today. And I had a great time with a friend. And so, what I'm going to do, I don't want to jump into the next few verses of Ruth. Simply, there's so much in these next few verses that we can unpack. And I don't necessarily want to do that. I don't necessarily want to take um, minimize that since I haven't really had time to put into study. I do find that important. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reference a little bit about what I talked about yesterday. And we talked about in the last couple episodes when we started this idea of Ruth, we talked about the idea of decisions that are made and the pros and cons of decisions and things of that nature. And so I'm just going to take a couple minutes, and obviously I won't be as long today, but I'm going to take a couple minutes and I'm going to share some thoughts on the idea of making decisions. Each and every one of us have to make a lot of decisions in life. And some of them, some of them are simple. They're not really, life altering. You got this morning, you decided what to wear, and you decided what to have for breakfast, or you eat it at home or go out, or things of that nature. And all those things are great. Those are simple things. And we know that those are, they're not life altering decisions per se. But I want to talk about the idea of what we call life altering decisions, things that when we make them, we know. Let me put this: the best way to look at it is times you look back in your life and say, I wish I had done that different. I wish I had made a different decision. So let me just give you a few thoughts on decisions. First of all, we mentioned, so I'll just repeat this. We mentioned that one important aspect of making decisions is never make them discouraged. When you're having a rough day, and to be honest with you, it's easy in this time of life right now, with COVID and everything else going on. It's really, really easy to become discouraged and get frustrated and things of that nature, and to make impulsive decisions based upon the latest news broadcasts or latest information on COVID or things like that. And some of it we need to have. We need to have the information, but I encourage you, you get discouraged. Don't make permanent life altering decisions based upon discouragement. Right? It's easy to say I'm done with this. I'm moving on. I'm changing this, and a lot of times what happens is this. Have you ever heard the phrase? I've often used it. The straw that broke the camel's back. We know that a straw is not going to break a camel's back. The premise is there's so much weight on the camel that little straw, it wasn't what really caused the grief. It was all the other weight. Now that's a silly explanation, but you understand the point. A lot of times we make decisions and to an extent overreacting simply based on information we have at that moment. But that's not why we made the decision. We were overwhelmed with everything else going on in life. We're overwhelmed with COVID. We're overwhelmed with all of the school scenarios, the lockdowns, and things of that nature. That there's limited the time. Last night, my wife and I went to the mall. They were closing earlier than normal. Like this, it's just life is not back to normal, and it's frustrating. So it's easy in those scenarios to make impulsive decisions, and not always necessarily good decisions. And so be careful that you don't make an impulsive decision when you're discouraged or frustrated. The other thing I would encourage you to do, we think about this. Elimelech chose to leave the promised land to go to Moab. And again, we don't know. We don't know if his sons and he would have lived if they'd stayed in Canaan. We don't know. A lot of people like to run with it. They love to run. And please remember, there is nowhere in Scripture that gives proof either way. So the last thing we're going to do is spend time trying to prove what we cannot prove. It's a very dangerous thing to do. We have opinions. I've heard this preacher say it, and I'm sure we have. We don't know. We don't know if it was God's punishment. What we do know is when they chose, it's possible that going to Moab, something happened that resulted in the death. We don't know. What we do know is possible. We know that when his wife comes back, Naomi comes back, she told people, call me Mara, for God has dealt bitterly with me. There were some results of things taking place. So we look at the fact that decisions are important. Please remember, there's some decisions you'll make that will affect you the rest of your life. Yeses and nos to major events, people, the way you talk to certain people. Let me encourage you, get all the information before making decisions. You hear someone say, "Did you hear about this?" And immediately, the moment we hear about something, we react. And sometimes even make decisions based upon that. You be very, very careful. From my perspective as a pastor, I've known many, many people throughout my life, and I don't mean necessarily at our church, although sometimes at our church, but throughout my 44 years of being in church, or when someone leaves a church, why? It was a really rather impulsive thing. They heard a comment that wasn't true, or they heard something they didn't like, and instead of getting more information, they just decided, I'm out of here. And sometimes it's sad. Sometimes the information is true, sometimes it's sad. And then, can I go back? What happens? Sometimes we do. We make impulsive decisions. I know people quit their jobs, having a really bad day. I'm done. And they walk out. The problem is, now you've walked out. Can you go back? Can you get a good job the next one? You're going to be on your resume that you quit. So there's a lot of things. If you decide to make impulsive decisions and you don't have all the information, you're probably going to do something you're going to regret. So I encourage you, get all the information. You know, James tells us, reminds us, be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. So many times we make decisions because we don't have all the information, then we make bad. If you don't have all the information, you are more than likely going to make a bad decision. And then when it's all said and done, you're going to look back and say, I wish I had known, if I had only known. So you don't want to do that. So number one, don't make decisions when you're discouraged. Number two, get all the information. Don't make them impulsive. Can I give you number three? Spend time with God before making major decisions. James also tells us, if you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that gives to all men liberally and upbraideth not, shall be given to him. And I'll be honest, that's really what we have to look at. There's some times when I go to God, I say, God, I look at this and I still don't really know where to go. Remember what he says. If you ask, it will be given. So that doesn't mean it'll be given right away. I'm impatient. This is part of my personality. I really would love to have the answer now. And God says, don't worry. In a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, in a year or so, I will give you the information. Stay still until God gives you the clear information. Well, God has an answer, so it has to be this. No. And sometimes we do. Sometimes dates and circumstances force us to, but God does not. He's not late with his information. So I encourage you to do not make decisions when discouraged. Don't make decisions impulsively when you don't have all the information. Spend time with God making decisions. You say, well, how do I know when it's right? When you ask God for wisdom, God will work in several ways. One, he will help other people advise you in ways that they just mention something to you. They won't even know what you're going through. Sometimes God will use circumstances to make his way clear. Sometimes God will give you peace, just clear peace about it. The key is, if you're looking in your faith and you're willing to say, Lord, whatever you have for me, I will do, God will give you that direction. God will give you that clarity. So many times we make decisions that we end up regretting simply because we've decided to be impulsive. We've decided to make decisions out of frustration, or we've just decided, to not get all the information and to go it ourselves. We don't care what God thinks. I'm going to do it myself. Be very, very careful. Make sure you bathe your decisions in prayer. And in some cases, you must fast and pray to really be able to get the information that God wants you to have. Well, I mentioned when I started, I'd be shorter today. I said normally I get to the office and I start off with my study. And I was out running some errands this morning on my way to work, and got to spend some time with a good friend. It was unexpected, but a great time, and truly of the Lord, I know, for me. And so I'm actually on the way back from that time now. And so we're glad you joined us. Normally I go like 15 minutes, and I think my timer's got me coming up here at 9. And so I hope these 3 thoughts will be an encouragement. They're probably not new, but I hope they're an encouragement. Maybe right now where you're struggling, just be willing to take some time with God and be patient, and wait and see what God will do. Hope you'll join us tonight, if you can, on property, 7 o'clock. The adults in the auditorium. My class will continue in the fireside room, and then teens and kids club will have their own services. The teens will start in the gym. The kids club will end up in the gym, and we do have a nursery. So even if you don't have another church and you just happen to watch these, we invite you to join us tonight. It all starts at 7 o'clock. Well, thanks again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time. God bless.